What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast today, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here's a clip from our song, On Your Own.
On your own, on your own, nobody ever makes it on their own. All alone, well, my son, you'll never be all alone. There's a song deep in your heart. It's like a raging lion. It's gonna tear you apart. There's a song deep in your soul. It's gonna start a fire. So let the winds blow.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band. At Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and there'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast.
The Live and Create podcast.
I have actually just got off of a songwrite with a friend of mine, and we had a great ride today, and so it's been really good, man.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. I'm curious. So I have multiple friends that do like Zoom songwriting.
Yep.
I've yet to try it. So I've done collaborative songwriting in person. What is that like? Can you break that down for me? I'm just curious.
Yeah, man. I've actually done a lot of like Zoom or FaceTime writes. Here, let me turn this thing off. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I've done a lot of Zoom writes and stuff, and it really all started from I went to a Nashville Songwriters Association and event and met some people all over the country that had went to this event, and I ended up meeting a lady out there that she's from St. Louis, and we just hit it off. I loved her songs, and when we met and just kind of collaborated for a little bit while we were at the event, we're like, hey, let's try and write again. And we're like, yeah, let's try FaceTime or something. And so we just would jump on a FaceTime call, talk. We always kind of just catch up and, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And then we dive into something. So like sometimes I'll bring an idea, or we always both bring ideas, I guess you could say. But whatever kind of hits us when we're on the call, we're like, hey, let's run with that. And
that's cool, man. So real quick, your video seems to be frozen. Is it frozen on your side?
It's not on my side.
Okay, as long as it's not on your side. I see your face,
Okay.
but it's not moving. And I know sometimes this program, it like degrades things just to keep the stream easier, but in the end, it has the full high quality. So we'll be all right. But so I think it's hilarious. You're like, I don't even need to Zoom. Let's just do FaceTime and
Oh yeah, man.
and make this happen. That's really cool.
FaceTime works great for it. What I did today, the guy was Steve Dean is his name, and he's just had an incredible songwriting career and music career. And met him. He's actually from Arkansas, and I'm from Arkansas as well. And we met actually this year for the first time at the Arkansas Country Music Awards through some friends.
Nice.
And I've been able to write with him a few times now, and since that event, and we just had a killer write today. So I'm kind of coming off
That's
of a
awesome.
cloud nine high things.
You're like, woo,
Yeah.
let's go. Yeah, there's some days our band writes on Tuesdays together is like it'll be like an all day, like 12-hour day thing. Often.
Dang, that's awesome, man.
And
Yeah.
there's some days where you're frustrated, and then there's some days, like you said, I'm driving home at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, Oh my God, I feel like I'm high right now. It's so amazing.
I
And
know
those are great days, man.
it is. It really is. So, but yeah, it's funny how,
S-
that stuff makes you feel just so good, man. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've heard it explained like your baby or your child that you, you created. So,
That's like a friend of mine. He was like, sometimes you just got to let the baby be born, even if it's ugly. Is that what
that's
he had
right.
told me? I was like, I guess you're right.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny. I'm in a writing season right now where I have a bunch of embryos. If we're gonna go with the whole
Yeah.
analogy,
Yeah, dude.
it's
Yeah.
for some reason like the pace of life and the business end of things right now is so crazy that I can only carve out just like a little section of time on my own. But I'm like, it's like, so it's almost like the IVF of writing. Maybe I'm just stacking a bunch of embryos for
Hey,
later. Maybe that's
I'm the same way, man.
maybe that's a bad analogy right now, but
No, it's funny that you put it like that. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but I was kind of the same way. I was on my way home from Arkansas yesterday. I had a show down there, and when I'm on the road, I feel like I get a lot of inspiration. And so, man, like I was just writing down ideas in my notes, kind of like, "Hey Siri, write this down, man." Actually, I better not say that. She'll probably pop up. Yeah, she did. There you
she
go.
did.
Gotta be careful, man.
I've done that several times on this podcast, and it like shuts down my entire computer. And she's like, "Hey, let me tell you what to do." Well, doing the notes thing, man, I try to explain to people where I'm like, it's like I'll hold up my phone. I'm like, here's all my written notes and then my voice memos. And I mean,
Yeah,
ideally as a songwriter, you're collecting that though. And hopefully you have hundreds of things to pull from,
that's
you know?
right. That's exactly right. Yeah, man, I use notes, like I'll do shared notes for writing. I'll use Google Docs. I don't know if you use that or not, but
Mhm.
um that's what,
Yeah. Google
especially
Docs is where I live
online.
in.
Yeah, Google Docs has been a big partner for that. So,
Yeah. Notes are more like the idea, like it'll just be like, it's like my notepad. Like if I just had a
hmm
line or two lines or just a concept, and then Google Docs. Yeah. That's where we go to like collaborate and do the full lyrics and then argue about, the end and and where it should go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's the little things, man. They make a big difference.
Now you're originally from Arkansas, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
had said that earlier. I fell in love with Arkansas. I had never really been there. And then as a band, we would tour through there. We played in Mena, Arkansas out there, Fayetteville.
Oh yeah.
And then I can't even remember. There's a place that's like up is the Ouachita. I'm
Yeah.
saying that right?
Watch it all, yeah.
Ouachita Mountains. And that's
hmm
like rolling into that. I had no idea how beautiful the country was, like that of Arkansas, like all the
Yeah.
rolling hills and going, man, it is amazing.
Yeah,
Is
man.
it hard being away?
It is some. We miss our family and friends. I mean, gosh, our roots were planted so deep there. Growing up there, we had
Mm,
never moved. My wife and I, we were from kind of the same town, and so moving away was tough, man. I remember we it didn't all really hit until we got here. We settled into our house, and then like both of our parents and sisters were up here helping us move in, and then we all went to Torchy's Tacos like right down the road right before everybody left. And then it was like when they drove off and then we drove up back to the house, it was so quiet and we're like, wow, like we're here now. One of those surreal moments like, holy cow, uh, we've moved. And you kind of feel a little bit on your own at first. And but man, what's so incredible about the Midwest is just the people are so friendly up here and inviting,
mhm.
and we've been very thankful for that.
What spurred you to make that move?
So it's actually my wife's job. So she
Oh, okay.
is a surgical resident, and she got placed up here at HCA Midwest, and
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
she works all the time, man. Just crazy hours, and it's a 5 year residency, and we're
Oh,
a little over a year in. So Um,
That's cool.
but man, we really like it here.
Well, it's cool that it coincided, like her progression, her own career coincided with you landing, I think, in a great place now for music. Do you
Yeah,
feel? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but um, yeah, what's your experience been like entering the music scene in Kansas City for you?
man, I couldn't agree more actually with what you said. I before when she found out we were gonna move here, um, I had never been to Kansas City before. I'd always heard great things about Kansas City, but I didn't know anything about the music scene. And I was like, oh, what will that be like? Am I going to be able to play music very much? Do they have a lot of venues? Which where I lived, I played a lot of festivals around Arkansas. Was kind of my thing. And
Mm,
when we moved here, and I jumped into because of some friends of ours, they told me about Heartland Song Network. And so I started going to the songwriter rounds that they had on like
hmm,
once a month on Sundays. And I met a guy there named Ron Manuel who lives I think in Lawrence, but he works here in town. And he started getting me connected around town and helping me find some venues to play at and bars and restaurants and all that stuff.
hmm.
Uh, and then through that, I started meeting other people that were coming to open mic nights, and then people that would show up at a show and didn't know who I was, but they liked what I was doing. They're like, "Hey, let me help you find some more shows," and that's what's been so incredible.
Nice.
Like everybody has just been, "Man, we like what you're doing. Let me help you." Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just so cool. It's so kind. So
Yeah, there's some great people out here. And I think the country scene, I think, is really strong as well. At
yeah,
least my from someone who's not part of that scene, outside looking in, it seems like there's a really cool like pathway and really good camaraderie in there.
I agree, man. There's it seems like a lot of people around here love country music. And that was kind of the other thing. I knew moving here, Kansas City, I think is more of a jazz type scene or kind of has that
Yeah,
vibe for it. And so I didn't really
definitely
know
our
what,
history.
yeah, right. And so I didn't know what to expect with that. And, but yeah, coming here and seeing just the reaction to country music has been so awesome.
Yeah, it's been so much so where I've even added, and I'm not like a big country guy myself, but I've added in country songs to my own solo set. And even the band itself, even though we're more tracked out, like the Killers,
Yeah.
Kings of Leon kind of vibe, there we're doing like Shabuzi. It's more pop country. It's like, but like Shabuzi and some Morgan
Oh,
Wallen. We're like
yeah, man.
sprinkling that in there because like I could just tell like the moment you do something like that, even if it's a full rock show and you just kind of give a nod to the audience, like, I see you, and
Right.
they light up,
They
and
do,
it's
man.
actually caused me to find some artists I really love. Zach Bryan right now
Hmm.
is like tearing me apart like that.
Yeah.
I'm learning something in the Orange and Hey Driver right now,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
I just his songwriting is phenomenal. So
it
yeah, it
is.
was like a gateway, and then now I just keep going deeper and deeper in there. Jason Isbell is one of my other go tos. He's probably my top, maybe if not top pick for best songwriter out there.
Oh yeah, man,
He's
his
definitely
stuff's
in the top
incredible.
five, if not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. So doing the songwriting you're on the road a bit too, right? You're still touring, doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I go back, so I have a band and stuff in Arkansas, and
Okay,
I've booked a lot of just festivals and things like that. So I've traveled back there pretty frequently. The guys are coming up here to play with me at Guitars and Cadillacs on November
nice.
15th and 16th, and we got to do that back in April. Man, that's just such a fun place. It
The vibe there is
yeah,
amazing.
man, everybody's ready to dance and just have a good time. I mean, gosh, so we're really looking forward to being back there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would play next door, and then Chad with Big Time Grain Company. I knew they were playing that night, so I was playing a different venue next door. So I popped in and hung out with them in the green room a bit, and I was
That's
like, the
awesome.
energy there, man. I was like, this place is wild.
It
I
is,
bet it's
man.
nuts.
It is. But such a cool venue. I
Now it's
never.
interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, no, I got to watch your voice, the chair turnaround
Yeah.
piece, which was really cool. Like great performance. And I can only imagine what it's like to have those chairs just spin around like that in a huge piece. Now, how long ago was that
So that was,
for you?
it's funny actually you say that. The Voice audition anniversary was Tuesday this week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been 5 years. It was the 5 year
5 years. Oh,
anniversary on Tuesday.
and this is why it's so this is one of many reasons I was excited to talk to you today, because I've known a lot of people who have been part of The Voice.
Yeah.
And the reality, I think some people have this concept that if you get on The Voice, it is, I mean, it's amazing, but it's not like you still got a lot of work ahead of you. And to
Yeah.
hear like how you're, breaking into new scenes, doing the work and touring with your band, doing these things afterwards is just really cool. Cassie Joy, are you familiar with her
Yes, I met
at
her
all?
about a month or so ago.
Yeah, watching what her and her what do they call her husband? They had a funny name from like the man the manager, not like husbandager or something. I don't know. He does a great job of like running
That's
things.
fun.
She had something funnier than that. I have to have her remind me. But again, like seeing her where she took that opportunity and then has worked her ass off to continue to build this great career.
Right.
So in all that, I'm curious what it's been like for you and the steps you've been taking since, stepping out of the show. I think you got like to the top 13, right? Which
So I
is
made it to battles, and then
battles.
that's where
Okay.
I was cut. But man, I mean, to kind of speak to your question a little bit, the voice really has been amazing. Like, so the year that I was on, I was the fall of 2019, and then COVID hit. So it just kind of, well, I guess you could say most people would say, it just completely ruined like all these opportunities that I had. But
Right.
at the same time, I look at it differently. Uh, like there was the voice kept me so busy that when
Okay.
I came off of it, it was nice actually to have a little break instead of just something crazy. Because my wife and I had just gotten married, and I had a
Oh,
ton of
wow. Okay.
shows. I had a ton of shows lined out between like festivals. Blake Shelton had invited me to play his bar up in Oklahoma.
Nice.
And so like I had some stuff like that that didn't happen,
Uh,
but I think it created a time for my wife and I to really
hmm.
draw close. And I'm very thankful for that, because now it's like, we had that time, like that first year in our marriage where we just got to get to know each other better than I think we could have ever
Hmm.
done. Because otherwise, I would have been on the road probably most of
Right.
that
You're
time,
like,
and
hey, glad we're married. Peace out.
I'll
I'll
see
see
you
you in
later.
9 months.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a huge thing, and um, but I guess let me take a step back here. The Voice was I auditioned in Nashville in February of 2019,
Mhm.
and from there, it was kind of like, well, if we like you, we'll call you back. If we like you, we'll call you back. And so I kept, I did the audition, and it was in the convention center in downtown Nashville. And got in there. There was 10 of us total. And
Hmm.
they called us up one at a time. And I remember walking up, and I had 3 or 4 songs prepared, and I had a vocal coach from Memphis, Tennessee at that time that had done. American Idol stuff, voice stuff for years. So he kind of knew like what they would be looking for as far as like how long, the parts of the song you need to sing to really
Mm.
showcase your voice and all that kind of stuff. And so I came in prepared, but I remember coming up and standing on this little green piece of tape, and they're like, "Yeah, well, okay, what's your name? All right, sing. What song you gonna sing for me? Okay, I'll sing some of it." And I sung, I can't remember, like "Already Gone" by the Eagles or something, and got like almost through like the 60 seconds or whatever I had planned, or 90 seconds, and he's like, "Okay, that's enough. Do you have another song you can sing for me, Corey?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And so then I think I did like a Brett Eldredge song. Brett Eldredge was real popular at the time, and um, he's like, "Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you." And then he called, some other people up, and but he never made anybody else sing again, and so that made me nervous. I was like,
You're like,
"Oh
why?
my
What
gosh."
was going on?
Yeah, like, was the first one not good enough? And then, so he finishes. He's like, "Thanks everybody for coming. We really appreciate you being here today." And he's like, "Corey, um, do you have something else you could sing?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, sir. I could do. How about Blue Ain't Your Color?" Or some. I did like a Keith Urban song. I think it was that one. And so anyway, I got up there and I didn't even get maybe 15 seconds into the song. He's like, "Okay, that's enough." I was like,
Oh,
"Oh man, all right, dude."
you're like, great.
I was
Guess
like,
I started
"Okay."
in the wrong spot.
Yeah, I was exactly thinking that. And I went and sit down, kind of honestly, I felt a little defeated. I was like, "Oh man, I didn't do very well." And I was like, "Well, I'll just have a good weekend in Nashville." So I went and sit down, and the guy was like, "All right, thanks everybody. We appreciate you coming to audition, and hope that you'll come back again. You all are dismissed except for Corey." And I was kind of like, "Oh, whoa, like this is crazy." And so I sat there, and man, like a little bit behind the scenes there. I don't want to go too deep, but there was this girl and dude, she sounded great. Like she was incredible. She was young. She left the room. And then while I was sitting there and the producer was like doing some paperwork and or something, he hadn't really talked to me yet. I was just sitting there waiting. And this girl comes stomping back into the room. And I can't remember exactly what she was saying, but
Oh,
she
wow.
starts cussing the guy out. And this girl's like maybe, gosh, 15, 16. I mean, super young.
No shit.
She starts cussing him out, and it's like, "You're going to give me another shot. You're going to give me another chance. I deserve to be on this show," and like all this stuff. He looks up and he looks back down while she's like cursing him out and like telling him all this stuff. I see him like moving stuff around on his computer, and he goes and writes a note on there, I think about this girl, like of what she's
Right.
doing. And then he looks back up and he's like, "I'm sorry, but we appreciate you doing this, but you're gonna have to leave." And she's like, "You mother," and then walked out. And I was just like,
That's a way to get invited back right there.
"Oh
That's how you
yeah." I was
do
like,
it.
"What the heck just happened?" Crazy. But anyway, sorry to linger on
That is
that,
wild.
but
No,
it
that
was
is
just
wild,
so
man. Well,
crazy.
how nerve-wracking though, I gotta imagine on your side where, yeah, they're going through that, but maybe they're just like, he's so good, we want to hear a little bit more.
Right, right. Man, I was nervous. I always get nervous before I play and sing, and I think it makes it exciting, though. I'm a perfectionist, and that's something I've really had to work on, especially this year. And man, I tell you, I'm so thankful for Chad Borquin, and like just
Mhm.
our relationship, and being able to kind of uh, talk to him and just be open with him about things, because he's went through a lot of things that I've went through with anxiety. And um so I've had to learn that, man, not everything's going to be perfect. I can't always nail every single thing But if I go out there and I look to bless the people in front of me and make them just have the time of their lives, man, that brings a lot of joy for me. And then it
Right.
takes a lot of all that pressure that I put on myself off, and then I can have a good time too. So
Well, and it's funny. It's funny because it does seem like in the live experience, sometimes it's the mistakes and how you respond to it that end up making the moment anyway,
yeah,
and that's the
yeah.
irony of the whole thing too. And I smile so big when you're saying that, because those are similar conversations I have with Chad, because it's like I want everything, like my OCD comes out real hard. I want everything like perfect. And like even
Yep.
I was showing my wife last night, I was showing her we have a gig sheet now where we kind of break down, it's like every little part of the day and the gig and everything. It's like it is planned to the minute and second. Like it's like, the song's going to end at 6:45:42. And like, I'm kind of insane, but, and that is, and I understand, like for me, there's reasons we do it that way, but we had to design it also to have that space, because I didn't at first, and I would just get pissed off all the time.
Oh
And no one
yeah.
wants to play with someone pissed off, right?
Right.
Where it's now we're like calling audibles and learning to read the crowd better, or
Yeah.
like sometimes my bass player and I will like fuck with each other's guitars while we're playing. Like one time he covered my microphone when I was supposed to run up to sing, because I was like rocking in the back, and he puts his hand over his microphone, and he did that a few times. Then one time he like took too long and I missed the cue, but we just started laughing, and the crowd started laughing because they know we're just like
Y'all are
having
having a
fun.
good
So it's kind
time,
of
man. Yeah.
it freed me up to like, all right. Yeah, it does seem like sometimes those become the most memorable moments, where like, I've had one time where a sound system went down, and while
Mm,
they're trying to fix it, we just go out acoustic and
yeah.
sing, and it
That's cool.
became the best part of the night.
Right.
That's wild, man. So being in that whole scenario, you opened up several things I hope we have time to go into, but I'm curious, your time in The Voice, what were one or two of the biggest lessons that helped you in these past 5 years
Yeah, man.
that you learned in that time in The Voice?
I think so from where I was talking about, that was just, that open call audition. And I went through a lot of different kind of callbacks, I guess, if you will, um,
Mm-hmm.
to continue down to finally get to the day where the judges are in front of you, with their backs turned in the chairs. But I spent a whole month out there in LA um, before that uh, audition that you see on TV.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so during that time, they give you, I think there was 5 vocal coaches on staff. And so
Wow.
everybody, I mean, there's over 100 people. I mean, gosh, we were all in a hotel, and they told us, they're like, okay, you can't sing in the halls or in the, downstairs where everybody's at. And they're like, you've got to kind of be quiet and not tell people why you're there. And but I mean, there's like
Because they got
all
to
these
keep a secret.
people. Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah,
you're trying to keep
get
secret.
hundreds of singers together and say, "Guess what you can't do."
Yeah, so it didn't really happen. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
But we tried, you tried not to talk about it and stuff. But when people are walking through, all the areas, they have to know something's going on. Um, but um, trying to get back to your question here, I they gave us vocal coaches, so I would spend my time. You would go like maybe a couple times a week or something to the vocal coach, and you were assigned a song. You didn't get to pick the song,
Mm,
but I was really fortunate that the songs that they chose for me actually were like some of my audition songs or songs that I already knew. But that
that's
wasn't the
awesome.
case for everybody. Some people they were trying to mold, I think, into a certain genre, and so for some people, the experience just wasn't really great. But for me, it
Right.
was like I really had a great time and got to be myself. But the vocal coaches, I actually had a lady, her name was Bird, and she knew my vocal coach out of Memphis, which was kind of cool and
That's
crazy.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
but she was tough, man. I mean, she she made a kid cry, and the day before
She's a
auditions,
badass.
he would not come out of his room. Like, she just like terrified him. And
Oh.
but I mean, I was there to better myself and learn as much as I could. So there was way,
Mhm.
you could take it either way. Um, but if you go in with a good mindset and like, hey, they're just trying to pull the best out of me so that I can make it on the show. Um, but she was a big help. I think just helping me lean into, kind of my voice and owning my
Mhm.
voice and not worrying so much about what someone else may think about it. Um, but going in, I mean, it kind of had to be a little more theatrical. You're trying to get the judge's attention. So she made me like work on notes that I would not normally hold out as long and as high at the same time. So that was really fun. So that I came off, with just some experience with that. Being in front of the cameras was a big thing. It helped me become more comfortable with who I
Hmm.
am, because you didn't always have a camera in your face all the time. But on the long days, you'd wake up and have to be ready at 5, and you'd have wardrobe and makeup and, rehearsals, whether that's with the band or with the band leader. You'd have stage coordinators that would help you, like,
Hmm.
how should you perform this and showcase, where you are on the stage, switching hands or switching, the mic in which hand during what part of the song, all that kind of stuff. And then you'd go into interviews. I remember one night we had a late night, and we had like a super long day. And then at the very end of the night, you had interviews with producers of the show, and they would film it. And so you'd have somebody like sitting on or sitting, at a chair over to the side, and they'd have this like couple people running a camera up and down this little runway thing, and you would just
Hmm.
sit there and try to try to not focus on them and just like answer these questions that this guy had.
Right.
And so I mean, it's just like all of that stuff. It made me, I was still nervous, I would get anxious, but I would try to remember to take a breath, man, and uh just be comfortable in my own skin and
Hmm.
not to waver from who I am, no matter
Right.
what they're looking for, because they're looking for, a certain thing for the
Right.
show. It is, I mean, as we were told, I mean, it's a reality TV show that happens to be about singing, and you just happen to be one of the singers on here. So,
Right. I remember American Idol contract. I went through like the tryout process, all that kind of thing. Got a gold ticket or whatever the hell it was. I
oh,
didn't.
cool,
I ended
man.
up not going, but I ended up not going
Really?
and taking it like, and it was dumb. I look back on it now. I was like, you should have at least gone it because hearing your experiences, it's like I would have learned so much, even no matter where it would
Yeah.
have gone. So I regret that. But I remember reading the contract, and there was like this little line in there that said, "We have the right to change your story or history or background."
Yeah.
And no joke, some people I tried out with, they made it on to that particular year. And we met a person that day, like that day, and talked to them all day together. On the show, they were billed as best friends for years.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, whoa, I don't know if The Voice is that far on it, but like I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, that line in the contract was so true. You said something in there that I thought was really, really interesting, is that being on cameras all day actually helped you become more comfortable with yourself. And I find that curious because I feel like most people's reaction is to get on camera and we're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. We freak out. Can you unpack that for me? Like, what about being on the camera helped you be more comfortable in your skin?
I think it's because I've always been so anxious and worried about not being my true self,
Mm,
and maybe to unpack that a little bit, I think about I always want to, or I guess maybe I've always had that desire to be famous and like all these things.
right.
But then as I got in the middle of, you know, where I was and what was going on and what I was doing, that was my first time away from home and away
Hmm.
from family. And I was seeing things behind the scenes that were happening that I'm like, okay, that's not right. I'm not going to do that.
You're like,
There's
welcome to
just,
LA, baby.
yeah,
Welcome to
yeah.
LA.
So, I was growing during that period and I didn't realize it until, later.
Hmm.
Um, but there was just things like even, uh, being on camera and just remembering like who I am, where I'm from, and all that kind of stuff. It helped me stay more relaxed instead
That's
of
awesome.
trying so hard, which I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there were times where I felt like I needed to really try and be something that I wasn't.
Right.
Um, but I came to realize I was more comfortable and more relaxed when I just worked on being myself. And like I said, taking a breath work seems to be the biggest thing. And I'd kind of forgotten about it. And like this year,
Hmm.
I've kind of started getting back into that. And man, yeah, it's just helped me tremendously. But
That's huge, man. In a way, it almost sounds like you got like an entire month of just being able to practice like mindfulness,
yeah,
like in a high stress, I imagine, situation
well, I
where I could see
did.
how that would
Yeah,
forge, if you're doing it that way, it would forge this sense, a greater sense of who you are.
right.
That's really cool, man.
And I did.
I
I
love that.
mean, we had times where we had time off and you could go do stuff. And they would give us a food stipend. So every morning, I was like, well, I don't want to go downstairs and eat the really expensive restaurant all the time. So I'm just going to
Smart.
walk across the street when the sun's coming up and go to Subway and eat like a croissant sandwich with a coffee. And I would sit there outside and just drink my coffee and watch the sun come up over the hills there. And I was just like, man, I'm really getting to do something like this. This is incredible. I need to soak this in. So I enjoyed it and had the time of
That's
my
cool,
life
man.
with it. So
Well, and I think this world, um, it it works best, the writing and performing, when you become comfortable with yourself. And
yeah,
I feel like the times I connect with the audience the most is when I finally just feel the most free, like on
yeah.
stage, even in songwriting, where it's like, I think Neil Gaiman, are you familiar with him?
I don't
Wrote
know
the
if I,
book like
yeah.
American Gods. And
Okay.
I can't remember I just read one of his books, American Gods, but he has a, he has a commencement speech where he's talking to like like people getting ready to go out in the creative world, and he says like just about the time as a writer you feel like you're standing in your underwear in front of the audience, that's about when you're starting to finally get good at writing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like in learning that process, I think that's really cool.
I
The
was
other part, I
actually,
think, oh, go ahead, no, go ahead, go
I
ahead,
was just gonna
sorry.
say, man, like you mentioning that, that was something I was thinking about before we jumped on here. The letting go, because it's so
Mm.
easy to try to force things. And when you try to force something, it just doesn't work out, man. You know? And I was thinking about this song that me and Steve finished up today. Before I had thought about the title of this song, I was trying so hard to try to write a song that day, and it just wasn't panning out. So I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm gonna go sit down for a minute and turn on the video games, and I'm gonna play some Rocket League. And when I did that, I literally sat down on the couch and was playing. I was like relaxed for a minute, and then literally half of this song started coming to me, and I put the controller down. I was like, grabbed my piece of paper, and I was like,
Like, hell yeah, let's go, let's go.
Yeah. And now here we are. I think we finished like an incredible song, and you know, it was something Steve was so excited about it. But it was like once you finally just let go, and for me, just let God have control. It all works out.
Yeah. When it does seem that way, I'm like the king of force and shit. Like
Me
it's just
too.
how I live life and everything. Most people, you know, we had a bass player in the band one time where he's like, you really are that bull in the china shop. Like you will just, oh fucking let's go. But yeah, oftentimes that leads to just exhaustion, and it's like learning to partner with things. I remember I went through a songwriting season where it was probably 2 or 3 months straight where I did 2 songs a day, 5 days a week, just like boom,
Wow,
just
man.
going. And it was a great season. I don't write like that anymore. I might one day try that again. I learned a lot of things through it, but it was like month 3 and I'm just pissed off every day. Everything is terrible. And we actually got some songs out of that ended up on our EP. But at this point, I was like, everything's trash. This is terrible. I called the producer we work with. His name's Josh Gleave. And I was telling him what I've been doing. He goes, dude, get your kids, leave the house, go to the playground, and like put them on the swings or something. He's like, you gotta walk away. He's like,
Yeah, man.
walk away. And so, yeah, more and more, it's like, is it that I'm not a video game guy, but obviously for you playing video games or like I'll go on a walk or
Yeah.
go on a run or, you know, and it's like, then all of a sudden the breakthrough happens. Cause yeah.
Isn't that
just
crazy?
relaxed.
Yeah, right. It's so crazy, man.
Well, and the other part of this life of keeping hold of who you are, I find, so the band, our band Run With It, we were on tour for like two years, whereas it almost felt like a week and a half on, 2 weeks off, week and a 2 weeks on, you know, like I always describe that for those 2 years, I saw my bandmates more than my wife and kids, you know, and I think life on the road and just the pressure and all that kind of stuff can be really tough. So I think it's cool that you saw that opportunity, like with your wife, like that first year of COVID happening, you guys connecting.
Yeah.
What are some tools for you as just like a husband trying to build a good marriage in the midst of like this crazy music world? What are some tools that you guys use just to protect your marriage or vitalize your marriage, however you want to say it?
You know, for us, communication is the biggest thing. Because it's so easy for me to be like, ooh, show? Yeah, yeah, I'll come play that. Yes, yes. Be the yes man to anything that has to do with music because that's what I love and that's what I want to do.
Right.
I want it to grow. But something, and I'm not perfect at this, but something that I've been really trying to work on as we've moved up here is trying to talk to her like, hey, what's your schedule like this month? Because hers changes every single month, and some months are really tough, and where others are a little bit easier. But with traveling and stuff, it's like, hey, what do you think about me going to do this? Is this going to affect you in some way where you might need me to be here instead of me being gone? And like, for example, my wife's just, man, she's incredible. She reads me like a book. She knows me better than myself, I think, most of the time. And there was a show opportunity that came up a couple weeks ago, something I really wanted to do, but I knew it was going to really stress me out because I was already traveling the week before and I was traveling the week after. And I was like, if I go do that, I'm not going to see Sarah much. And plus, I'm a homebody. I love being at home. I think COVID kind of brought that out of me too. But she's like, I was talking to her about it and I was like, hey, I'd love to do this. But what do you think? And she's like, Cory, you can do it. She said, but you know it's going to stress you out. And I was like, you're right. You're right.
It's so
And
funny. It's like, why do we need that? But for some reason, I'm the same way. Where like this Monday, I was like, I tried to work like
yeah.
all morning, and all I was doing was push. Like I said, like pushing against a wall. And I texted her. I was like, "This day has been shit." And she's like, "Well, you haven't stopped going for 7 straight days around the clock. Maybe you
Right.
should just take a nap or something." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe I should do that."
They're always right,
It's
man.
funny. That's cool that she has your back in that regard too. That she
Yeah,
can see
man. I'm
that
very
and have
thankful
an
for
insight.
that. Yep. Yeah.
For you, what do you feel is next? Like as far as strategies, like I don't know if you're a whiteboard guy and you got all the strategies drawn out, but what does that look like? What's the roadmap look like for you currently?
I'm always trying to think ahead. I actually use the Notes app for that as well. Um, I've been over the past few weeks, I've been thinking about the next thing. So I've worked with a producer out of Nashville. His name's John Conley, and he's from Arkansas too. And he's from a place like 30 minutes up the road from where I'm originally from. And we hit it off a few years ago through a friend, and uh, I talk with him a lot about like next moves. What's the next thing? Like we songwrite a lot together too, and we had a meeting a couple months ago where we had a vision, and we're like, hey, let's shoot for this, let's shoot for that. And I think the biggest thing that I always tend to forget, but I have to remember, is yeah, you create these plans and these things, but not everything always goes the way you want it to. And so now I'm with like, I mean, and it comes down to finances and stuff like that. Cause like sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to work out perfect. But then we may have something come up and it's like, oh, I need to kind of rework this. But that's
I know
life.
that way too painfully well. Yep. It's
And
part of it.
so, yeah, it is. And, I was planning on like going to do 4 songs this fall. And I'm like, you know what? I've got 2 ready that are close. I need to finish those up. And I've got another one that's almost done that I was wanting to release this year, but I think
Mhm.
I'm going to save it for next year because I want to make sure that I'm able to promote it, have the money there to really back and drive that song because there's something there for it. And if I just throw it out there, I don't have that right now. And I'm
Right.
independent, so everything I'm doing is out of pocket, and which is cool, which I think is really great. I wouldn't trade it for
Hmm.
anything because I get to release the music that I really love and I'm passionate for. Um, but it does come with not having a big budget. But I think it makes it a little
Right.
sweeter though, knowing like, man, okay, I got these songs right here and I love them. I can't wait to make
Right.
this the people's, give it to the fans and just let them enjoy this because I'm proud, I'm really proud of it.
That's awesome, man. So a lot of it for you is centered around these original pieces. And then with your touring, are you touring specifically for those songs, like original venues? Or are you also do you do like private events, that kind of thing? What's that look like
I
for you?
do a mix of both. So I've never been on like I would say like a big tour. I've always wanted to do
Hmm.
something like that. But I always try to plan release dates around festival stuff, like a bigger show or like, shows that are coming up. Um, because it's like exciting for me. I had a song come out September 13th, which I saw y'all did too, and it's incredible, man. Um, I I had a festival. I had a couple festivals in Arkansas that weekend, and I had what was so cool about it, like one of the towns that we played, the fans there, it's a small town, and I love that town. They have become like some of the biggest fans. They know all the words to the
That's awesome.
songs, like, and so
Nice.
um I had scheduled for that song to release then because I was like, man, that is going to be so much fun getting to see their reaction to the new song. and I had been leaking a lot of it beforehand, so people could already kind of get the chorus down and
Yeah.
know more, know it and kind of already know the vibe. And um, so it just turned out incredible. I think I may have gotten away from the question, but um,
Well, no, you were hitting that as like what the touring looks like, and as you're going forward, I was talking about too, like if you're doing like private events and those kind of things, combination of it.
yeah. So I just try to think about the release stuff, I guess, with that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like at a show, um, if I know if I have an idea of like there's going to be a lot of people there that know my songs already, then I definitely add more original stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
at private events, whether it's private or festival or whatever, bar or restaurant, I'm always I always normally do a mix of covers and originals, and um,
Mm-hmm.
that way, I guess I always just try to think about the crowd and what they might like, and um, just how to like engage them and make them feel a
Right.
part of the show. So I feel like I gotten away from
Well,
your question, so I'm sorry.
no, that was right on it. That was right on it. Well, and sometimes we'll think of it as like almost like radio, where a lot of times you want to get on radio because it's taking your song, putting it next to this other thing that people already know. And so it's
Right,
like this
right.
association where we find, it just depends on the gig for us. But, we did a gig recently where, we did 3 originals and then we kind of sprinkled some covers in there, kind of leading up, kind of making the originals as part of like the arc of the show
Yeah,
and bringing them in with it, which is always a win if you can get that going.
it is.
Um, when it comes to songwriting, like obviously you're very passionate about that. You're doing the co-writes. What does your like solo writing practices, or do you have like a practice behind that, um, or a strategy behind that as you're writing on your own?
I don't. When I first started, I did a lot of solo writing, and
Mm-hmm.
now it's turned into more like I don't do I would say like full song solo writing anymore. Um, and I think it's because I've come to find out for myself that I love having other people to bounce ideas off of.
Mm-hmm.
And because when I'm looking at a song, like I always, I have ideas. I have a songwriting book. I use my notes, kind of like what you're saying, just to jot down ideas and stuff. Um, I may write like if lyrics are just flowing, I'll write stuff out. But I normally present it to like another co-writer, or if I'm like, oh man, I feel like so and so would make the perfect fit to help me write the rest of this song. Um, I just have somebody jump in on it. And
Yeah.
I think it's because I know for myself, I'm not the greatest songwriter. I wish I was. But I know that if I have somebody else on there with me, it's going to strengthen it. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think that's kind of the way that I approach it right now anyway. So
That's cool. Did you start out primarily writing solo, or as has the song write thing with other people been there for you that whole time?
I started out writing solo. I
Mm,
picked up the guitar when I was almost 17, and because my grandpa had got me interested in it, and I was like, learned a couple songs, and for some reason, like I never even dreamed about being a songwriter or anything. But I was like, well, I know a couple chords. What if I try to put some words to this? And it just felt like it kind of just came. And
that's cool.
my first song was awful.
I
But
feel you.
it
I look back on those. It's like, I thought it was the shit. I thought it was
Oh
the
yeah, man.
shit,
Oh
but
yeah.
instead it was shit. And but it's part of the process, right?
Oh yeah, man. But I mean, yeah, it kind of, I guess, was something I fell in love with, and then I just kept trying to do it and grow at
Yeah.
it and get better. And I mentioned this, I think, a little bit earlier, but I joined NSAI, and Nashville Songwriters Association, and got involved with them and met people through that. And it was through that, and then through a buddy of mine that I'd played in a band with. We started writing together. Um, Not too long, I mean, a few years after that, but before that, I was doing it all solo. But
Yeah.
when I discovered bouncing ideas off of other people and things, man, I love that. So
You're like, yeah, let's go. That's a good idea.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. What does the process look like for you in the co-writes?
Man, the process, I guess, would be we always come in with ideas.
Mm,
Um, I think the coolest thing about the co-writes is I feel like you get so close to your co-writer. I mean, you're very vulnerable with that person you're
mm,
in a room with. So you really have to be kind of careful, I guess, with who all you do write with, because you dive deep into very personal things. At least
there
I
better be
do.
some trust
Yeah,
there.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I feel you. That's our writing sessions have been like almost like counseling sessions where I was
Exactly.
sharing with
Yes.
Brett, Chad's brother. I was sharing with him. I was like, I feel like I've gotten to know them more through this process than even touring. And we were with
Yeah.
each other every minute of every day. But it's like it's a whole different. You can ignore each other if you want on the road, but when you're trying to write something, I think that's genuine.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to go there,
Right.
and unpack it.
Right. I feel like you do too, and I think that's the one thing you grow so close to your co-writers, and gosh, I mean, everybody I write with now, they're almost like family. It seems like you're like, well,
Hmm.
how's your wife doing? How's the kids? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's so cool.
that's pretty cool, man. Is it tough for you to find co-writes or, well, I guess, are you actively looking for them or you just kind of stumble upon somebody you have a good connection with? Like, what does that look like to choose that?
I think it really has been for me more like I've just kind of stumbled upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I don't necessarily just go out like, hey, do you want to write together, or anything like that. It's always been like conversations with people or like a buddy back home or or something like that, or like through the songwriter event, like I just connect. There's a spark, there's something there that
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, either they have an idea or even if they don't, it's just kind of like, I like what you're doing. I think we could connect on that. Like, let's try and
Yeah.
write something. So that's how a lot of this stuff has happened. Now with Steve, who's just incredible, I met him through a friend. Like, I had no idea I was going to meet that guy at the awards that night. I didn't know he was there.
Mm-hmm.
I was upstairs and we were all just shooting the bull and having a good time. And a buddy of mine was like, Corey, did you know Steve Dean is here? And I was like, no, I didn't. He's like, well, come here. I want to introduce you. And,
Nice.
uh, and so I met him, and which he got to see me perform that night, which was cool. I got to perform, and um, we just connected. And apparently, I think my producer John had already kind of talked to him about us eventually writing, and I think another connection, especially like with somebody in Nashville that's doing it on major label top stuff, and when they know you're from the same kind of area, they tend to root for you and they want the
Yeah.
best
They're
for
like,
you.
hell yeah,
Yeah.
man.
So,
Let's get you out. More of us out there.
and so, I'm very thankful for that and for them to, have that kind of, um, oh, I guess desire,
Yeah.
and that's not the right word I'm looking for, but, anyway, it's so cool. And it's such it makes me feel so grateful, to have people like that in my corner that they just want the best. They want, you know, so cool.
When I feel like in this industry, when you find those people, you got to hold on to them
You
and
do,
fight for
man.
them, bring as much value as you can to them. Cause yeah, there's a lot of shady people in the industry, but then you can also meet these folks that are like lifelong, you know, that guy, Josh Gleave I referenced, who produces, he's actually out in Nashville as well. But man, over a decade, if not over 15 years, you know, that I've known him and we've worked in some capacity to where it's like, he knows what I'm thinking before I'm even getting like, the last time we were there recording in January, we were in Nashville, and I like our lead guitarist went to the studio, and I like took a shower, went and worked out. I was like, I have 100% trust, like musically, you know, that he's there, but then also from a character standpoint,
Right.
100% trust, you know, and who he is as a person. And, you know, Chad, you know,
Yeah.
I luckily I do feel like I have a long list of that, but man, when you can find those people, that's so huge.
It is, man. You're
Man,
exactly right.
it's very inspiring. I just ventured the 2 songs we just released, Night Watch and Ghost Like You,
Mm-hmm.
are our first 2 songs as a band that we wrote like fully collectively. Typically it was me on my own writing. And then Josh would take it, produce it, kind of sift things around, and everybody
Okay.
else would just come in and play, you know,
Yeah.
maybe they would do some tweaks here and there. But this one, I mean, like I said, we were in that room going at it, like arguing
Yeah.
about lyrics and direction and, you know, every little line together. But it was beautiful
Mhm.
experience. I'm loving it. I actually did another co-write. So essentially, long story short, this inspires me to keep going down that direction because, yeah, every time I've done it now, I feel more inspired and I
Mhm.
learn new things each
Yeah.
way.
Well, man, that's really cool that y'all
Last,
all wrote those. That's really neat.
yeah, it was fun. It was a fun experience just to see how each person, you know, or it would each person would come in and bring like their own thing and start twisting and turning and sifting and sculpting until it
Yeah.
became this completely other, you know, like the one that's like it's like this power dance rock thing. It literally started with me right here in my office on a piano. All I had was like the hook, and that
Yeah.
was it. And I sent it to them, piano and my voice and the hook. And then they built it into this, you know, monstrosity of a thing.
That's so cool.
And
Now, is that Night
it
Watch?
was really fun. Yeah, that one's Night Watch and Ghost Like
Dude.
You.
Yeah.
All I had was the opening 2 lines. That was it. And it was one of those little embryos.
Yeah.
I took it out of cryo freeze and I dropped it on the table. I was like, can this become a baby?
Oh man, those 2
And
songs are great, dude. I love those. I love
thank you,
in
man.
Ghost Like You when you hit that high note in the chorus, or the I, the word I love how you hold that out, and then the falsetto on you. Oh man,
Oh, thank you, man.
so good. So good.
I appreciate it, man. Well, the last 2 questions of the podcast, it comes from the title Live and Create. So right now in your life, how would you describe living a great life?
You know, that's a deep question. I think living a great life for me um, has changed over the years. And I would say I'm in a place where, man, seeing how I can bless somebody in the work, in the gifts that God has given me is so like that's how you can live a great life. And like for me, being surrounded by family, the people you love, that they love you, they want the best for you, they cheer you on, I think that, that's what creates a great life for me. It used to be about the fame and trying to get, to this, whatever that is, um, but it really, it's changed for me so much. And just knowing like, if I'm blessed to be a blessing to someone else and getting to do that and live, just a simple life and do what I love. And if something more comes out of it, it does. But other than that, I can go to bed, thinking, man, thank you, Lord, that I got to do this today. And thank you for letting me get to share the gifts that you've given me. So that's the way I feel about that.
That's awesome. For you, was it a moment that kind of made that shift for you, that change, or was it a gradual thing to make that change and focus?
I think um, I think it's probably been a gradual thing. But this year, I think has really, or I'll say the past few years have really changed that focus of to where I am right now. And it has to do with, I think like just a ton of change in my life that I've had. I've went through vocal trouble. I've went through,
That stuff's scary.
it
I did a
is,
season of that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
scary.
And man, I mean, I was just, not to go into detail, but just down on my hands and knees, just like crying, like what is going on? Like, and so it's stuff like that that has changed my whole perspective. And some of it's been through like changes in band stuff and trying to kind of figure out what it's like with us living here and traveling and my wife's job. And anyway, all of that just, I think, is what has created this change of the way I look at life.
That's cool, man. I love it. Last question. How would you define creating a great life? Or, I'm sorry, I already asked that. How would you define creating great things? I
Define
got lost
creating
in that.
great things.
Yeah, my bad. See, it won't be perfect, even though I wanted it to be.
You
Back
know,
all full circle to the beginning of the podcast. But yeah, how would you define creating great things?
that's a great question. You know, I feel like we kind of may have touched on this a little bit, but when I let go and not try to force something, that's when I feel like the greatest things seem to happen.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it kind of comes to this song today, like that we wrote. We had some of it done already, but we went back in and rewrote some parts. And then there was one part we were kind of stuck on, and we are like, yeah, you know what? Let's just move on. Let's try another song. And I was like, well, Steve, hang on a second. Let's not move yet. And I think it does take, some work. Like, we sat there and we were going one line, just as one line that was bothering us. And we were writing
I
over
know
and
that
over,
pain.
beating our head like, oh, what, you know. Um, but even though it takes some work, that song came when I just finally let go. And it was kind of funny that that one line came together because of all these ideas we had written down or that we had wrote down. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, what if we said it like this and then added this little tag to the end? And he was like, that's it. That's it. Like, but it just, I don't know, man. Like, it just seems like when you let go, you have to work at it. But if you just let go and not try to force it so much, that's when great things just seem to happen. That's the way I've noticed it over the past, gosh, even 6 months to a year or so.
That's awesome, man. Well, let people know how they can get in touch with you, check out the music and all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, first off, Miguel, thank you so much for having me on here. This has just been so much fun
Hey,
today.
thanks for making the time, man. Yeah, it's been
Um,
great.
yeah. My name's Cory Jackson. You can find all my stuff at CoryJacksonMusic.com. I'm on TikTok. I try to be on TikTok. TikTok, Instagram,
I've,
Facebook at Cory Jackson Music. Um, and so I try to be pretty present on there, and I'm much better than I used to be, but I'm not perfect. But I love getting to hang out with just all the friends, and so many fans have become like family. I've got a fan club, I guess, if you will. It's more like a family to me, but you can find that on my website. It's called Corey's Country Club, so be sure to come join the country club.
nice.
We've got a private Facebook page, and we have a broadcast channel on Instagram. So anybody can get into that. I just ask that you be nice and respectful to everybody, and just come hang out with us and have a good time. So
That's awesome. I love that. Corey's Country Club. Brilliant branding. Awesome. Thanks for.
Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create Podcast.